I'm sure that everyone is aware that the other sessions were also being recorded, so I'll start recording now. So our session will have three parts. We'll just do a small recap of the presentation of this morning from Giant on the challenges, solutions, and try to fulfill it with a little bit more insights from your side. You'll have some time to an opportunity to react to it. We'll then present you our first our proposed setup for the demonstration of solution models, explain you how what we are proposing, what we are aiming, and how you will be able to participate. And then we will continue and finalize the session with some ideas about the next steps. I'm hearing myself, so could everyone please mute themselves if they're not talking? Thank you very much. So without further ado, I will give the floor to Giant. Giant, please be my guest, and I'll help you with the slides.
Thank you, Nuno, and thank you for the introduction. So as Nuno was mentioning, we'll start with a brief recap of what was shared by me in the plenary session. As was mentioned, that the main task that we have in this part of the project is to understand how cross-border exchange of data can be facilitated in order to help enforce UVARs. And in order to, let's say, fulfill the objectives of this task, we are working on three different fronts. The first front being trying to understand the different challenges and requirements. The second front being the different solutions and solution models that we are also identifying in parallel. And the third front, for which this particular session is relevant, is to start the work on developing the demonstrations to go more deeply in understanding what is feasible and what is not, and what works and what not. So to recap a little bit about the first aspect, which is the challenges and requirements, we are looking at, of course, the different technical challenges that exist for sharing or accessing foreign vehicle data that may be relevant for UVARs, as well as the vehicle owner holder data that may be relevant. So through the work that we've done till now, and also the survey that we've sent out that I was mentioning earlier in the presentation in the plenary, we've been able to identify some challenges, which you can see listed on the slide here, some technical challenges that we have for accessing foreign vehicle data as well as vehicle owner holder data. And we want to sort of take also this short opportunity now with you to understand if you have been facing similar challenges, or if in case you have a different experience, or there are some other challenges that you would like to mention. Maybe we can take the opportunity through a small poll that you may be able to see in the chat section right now, where you can indicate some of the technical challenges that you may be facing for accessing the vehicle data as well as the vehicle owner holder data. And maybe there will be also a possibility to expand upon it when you fill in the poll. So please, I invite you to look at the chat section and fill in the responses. Please bear in mind that you can select more than one option. So if in case there are several options that are posing a challenge, please select more than one option. You can do it right now. And of course, bear in mind that in the next slide, we will also see some of the legal and administrative challenges. So here we are trying to focus more on the technical challenges, which relate to the non-availability of the data, non-availability of a tool, or a lack of access to a technological tool that can facilitate systematic access to the data, or the inaccuracy of the data. So please bear that in mind.
So like Giant already mentioned, if you have any further other so if you have any other challenges, you can include them also in the chat. Any other challenges that you might have that are not here explicitly mentioned.
And I already see some reactions coming, and there is one of the leading problem that was also visible through our survey, that there is a technology or a technical tool for data sharing, but cities cannot access it. And many cities, in fact, indicated this fact as well, that there are existing tools that are being used to share other kinds of data for more serious traffic offenses, but they may not be available for the purposes of UVAR exchange. Maybe I can give a couple of more minutes if you agree, Nuno, and then maybe we can move on to the next slide.
Sure. Maybe it will be good to see how this let's say the different options have been chosen in relation to the points that you presented this morning also already.
Yes. Yes, and I think it is resonating with some of the responses that we were receiving in the survey as well, where we were seeing many cities were indicating to us the non-availability of the data and not having an access to the existing tools, or non-availability of different tools. So this is I think reiterating some of the responses that we were receiving in the survey as well. I think Lucy is making a valid point here as well, because I myself was not sure, because there might be some people in the plenary session who, who are there, and then they thought that the session 3 would be held in that link, but it seems there is a separate link. So
yeah, also if you clicked on it the second time, you can't you couldn't get into it the second time. So hopefully people will be drifting in. Carolina's going to go and tell people
yes,
that.
I already sent the link to everyone. So, but we have 63 participants. So I think that's good enough. So maybe some other people, they don't want to listen to this lovely session. So, but let's continue. Now, I think everyone now has the link.
Certainly.
Thank you so much. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Carolina.
Yeah, maybe I think we can also move to the next slide, if you agree, Nuno, where we also were trying to understand some of the legal and administrative challenges for accessing vehicle data relevant for UVARs, as well as the vehicle owner holder data. And this is another challenge that we questioned the cities about in the survey. And once again, I think it would be a good opportunity to take the inputs from the people present in the session, if they can indicate if they are facing similar challenges, such as the absence of a legal basis to exchange the data for UVAR enforcement, and the fact that this data can be exchanged for other purposes, for example, serious traffic offenses, but is not being shared with cities in the context of UVARs, or aspects such as commercial or privacy issues, commercial sensitivity, and privacy issues that can impact the sharing of this data. And so once again, sorry,
I was just mentioning that in the chat you are able to fill in these your own ideas related to this question also.
Yes, and you can select, of course, more than one options if in case they are to your case. Here again, we see the same reiteration that that we've discovered through the survey as well, where cities are indicated that there are, let's say, ways and means to share this data in the context of other offenses, but in the case of UVAR offenses, UVAR-related offenses, this data cannot be accessed by the cities. And the fact that there isn't a legal basis to facilitate this access is a big challenge to enforce UVARs by sharing the relevant data, be it vehicle data, be it stakeholder data. I see a bit of an echo, maybe.
Yeah, please, could the people that are just joining, could you please mute your microphones? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Carolina. Maybe we can give it another minute or so that people can respond. And please do, if you have any other comments or want to add something, please indicate that in the chat section as well. We would appreciate all these inputs, as this would help us get a better understanding of the challenges and requirements that a system needs to have for facilitating exchange of data in the context of UVARs. Some indications were already, I think, given during the plenary as well, where people were indicating that there is, for example, the Vienna Convention, which can be used as a legal basis. And if in case someone wants to sort of expand upon it and give us the links relevant to the conventions or EU regulations that can be relevant, please do so.
So, and I see that we have currently 72 participants in our session, and I only see 15 reactions on the question. So I'm wondering why is that? Is it probably because not everyone is familiar with this problem, or is not part of this challenge, maybe? Which is okay. You're still happy. You're still welcome to participate in the session. But if the case is that the legal challenge that you might be facing or you come across, it's not here mentioned, please feel free to fill it in the chat. It's more for our own purpose, let's say, information that we can pursue afterwards. Then we won't be, let's say, disclosing anything within this session.
Or maybe it's that you cannot vote. If you cannot do that, it would be nice to have your answer at least in the chat, and then we know more or less which is your answer. Thank you so much.
There's a comment from Katja Giant on the chat.
Certainly, Katya, thank you for indicating this. I presume you're mentioning the cross-border enforcement directive as well as the EETS directive. Is that the case?
Yes, thank you. and maybe just to acknowledge that maybe we need a broader scope for those directives, so we actually have so we are within the scope to exchange these types of information. So yeah, thanks.
Certainly, thank you. Just to mention this, with CBE and EETS, in fact, they are two of the leading cases when it comes to the application, their application, UVAR enforcement, in fact. And once we've collected all this information from the cities and from the different stakeholders, we'll also be including in a forthcoming study that will come up early next year, trying to indicate what are the different solution models from a technical side, but also from a legal side. Of course, each particular directive has its own, let's say, strengths and challenges as well. And we will, as the project progresses, be looking into those closely, trying to understand their applicability to the different models that we also discussed during the plenary briefly. So thank you for your comments there. Much appreciated. Maybe if you agree, we can move to the next slide as well.
Sure. Well, this was the first part concerning the two questions and the results of your, and now a recap of the solution models that you also mentioned already this morning, Giant.
Yes, yes. So the second front, in fact, that it was mentioned earlier by me, is in fact identifying the different solution models that can apply to the enforcement of UVARs and can facilitate exchange of data. And from our current work through desk research as well as through interviews that we've been holding with different stakeholders, we have been looking at different solution models, each with their own strengths and also some challenges. But I think this is certainly interesting as far as our work is going to be in terms of facilitating data exchange for UVAR enforcement. And just to briefly recap on the different models as well, there is the authority-centric model. Of course, the leading example of this model is the UCARIS platform, which allows the sharing of the data between different national contact points who are often vehicle registration authorities in the different member states. And here there isn't the active involvement or the role of drivers or owners who are not required to, for example, register to provide the data that may be relevant for UVAR enforcement. So we are certainly looking at this particular model as well. And it is this particular model, in fact, that would require a certain legal framework that would allow the exchange of the vehicle data as well as the vehicle owner holder data in the context of UVAR enforcement. So certainly this is one of the leading models that we will be considering in our study. The second model that we will be, of course, looking at is going to be the driver-centric model. Under this model, there is a slight difference in terms because there is not the primary requirement for cities or foreign vehicle registration authorities to connect with each other in order to access the data, because the data can be shared via the issuance of a single digital statement or a verifiable credential that can then be shared by the vehicle owner holder with the relevant city enforcement authorities to provide all the data that is needed for UVAR enforcement, be it the vehicle data or be it the vehicle owner holder data, as a second step once the non-compliance with a particular UVAR has been confirmed. So this is another model that we are looking at, and it has also certain interesting features that may be relevant because it can be helpful, for example, in reducing the number of registrations that may be required because of the validity of this digital statement or verifiable credential across the different cities in the EU. It is a model that is somewhat similar to what we are seeing in the context of the COVID-19 pandemic, where there is the COVID certificates that are issued by one member state and are recognized by the other member state and provide all the information that is required in order to check whether a particular person is compliant or not, and then also to address it further. So this is another model that we will be certainly looking at. Of course, there will be the pros and cons and the opportunities and challenges of each model that will be considered. And similarly, there is the third model that we've also considered and will be looking at in more detail, which relates to the connected vehicles, which can be a source of information for the city authorities, for the enforcement authorities to check whether a particular vehicle is compliant.
No sound.
Yeah, and we cannot hear you. You're muted.
Sorry. At what point did I get muted? I'm sorry.
15 seconds ago, maybe.
Okay, so I was describing earlier the authority-centric model. Was that completed?
Yes.
Okay, then I was going into the driver-centric model, as I was saying that this particular model has its own strengths and it has also certain aspects that can be very interesting for the enforcement of UVARs for the purposes of sharing the data that may be relevant for the enforcement of UVARs, because here there may not be the necessity of connecting the vehicle registration authorities with each other or with the city authorities, and the data can be actually had via the single digital statement or a verifiable credential that is issued and is valid for across the EU for all the different cities, and can provide all the data that is relevant for the purposes of checking whether a vehicle is compliant with the UVAR or not, and subsequently also for checking the vehicle owner holder data if in case non-compliance is established and a fine needs to be issued. And certainly there are certain features of this particular model that will be looked at and considered as our study progresses. It has also certain bearings on providing information to the drivers and telling them whether they can access a certain zone or not. So it has certain features that can be added here, and that can also facilitate the information provision to the drivers. So certainly this particular model has certain relevant features and interesting aspects to be considered within the framework of our study. Similarly, we will also be considering the vehicle-centric model, which is another model that facilitates the exchange of information by allowing the vehicle to communicate with the city or road infrastructure, so that the information can be provided to the city authorities or the enforcement authorities to check compliance with a given UVAR or not, and also possibly to restrict access to certain zones and understand if UVARs can be enforced in this particular manner. So all these three models, I think, have their own strengths and some challenges as well that we will be discovering in the course of our study, and we'll be looking at them in detail, trying to understand their technical feasibility as well, and as well as the administrative and legal challenges that they may pose. In each case, we will consider them in more detail, and there may be, of course, distinct challenges as well for each particular model. So we will try to elaborate upon them as well. Certainly, this is not an exhaustive list of the different solutions and models, as was being pointed out by Lucy, I think, in the chat section earlier. If there are any other suggestions that you can provide us, there are any practices that are being used within your city that can be relevant for our work, please do share them with us, and we will appreciate it a lot, and we will try to include it in our study as well. So with this, I think I'll conclude my part of the presentation. I can give the floor to Nuno for the next part, which is the next front of our work, is the actual demonstrations, where we'll try to develop demonstrations for one or more solution models and try to see what is feasible and what is not feasible in order to better develop better recommendations for the EU. So thank you.
Thank you, Giant. Very well explained. At least it gives also an idea how far we are with our project currently, and still some way to go. And we are happy that we have already at least 3 different proposals that for solutions that we are able to study and to see the impact that they will have to the objectives of the project. And indeed, so in the session, what we like to give you as information is what we are planning and what we are proposing in terms of demonstration of these solution models. Just to start, we're still discussing with the solution, let's call the solution owners, what are the possibilities to demonstrate this, and they are in different levels of details, and we're trying still to capture all of them together with a couple of more stakeholders, cities and member states, to shape up these demonstrations that we want to do within our project next year. So the main objective for our demonstrations is just to show the potential and the impact of these solutions to the cross-border data exchange. supporting the UVAR enforcement, like Giant already said. During the demonstrations, we would like to assess as much as possible the complete chain of the solutions in a somehow semi-controlled environment. Something to be still discussed. We want to get more insights on the drivers and the barriers for further adoption or potential further adoption of these solutions, EU broad. And to learn about once you want to operationalize, once you want to implement the solutions, what we have to take in considerations. In the end, we want to encompass and to bring all these learnings and these insights into recommendations that we will deliver at the end of next year. Very high level, we have a UVAR enforcement process that we have identified so far. There are multiple ways of delivering these informants nowadays. Each city or each country, they have their own means, they have their own processes, and it's up to us to try to generalize that as much as possible, to try to encompass all the different state of practices, but also to try to encompass all the different features and possibilities for each of the solutions that we have identified. In a nutshell, we can divide in two types of a national process and a EU process. In the national process, where you have, if necessary, a pre-registration of vehicles, which will get some measures or some means of identification, or either a green pass or even a license plate that will be necessary to do that. And then we'll have the vehicle identification once they will be entering an UVAR, which we call the vehicle recognition. This we call it all of it a process that is under the mandate of a national process. And once there is some violation of, in order to check if there's a violation or compliance, you need to check if it's a foreign vehicle, you need to check if there's an offense or not, if this vehicle is allowed or not to get into a UVAR. And if not, then it needs to be enforced, and you need to get the owner or holder information, the contact details of it, so in order to be able to proceed with a fine. The main actors so far is that we have a driver, we have a vehicle, we have the UVAR enforcement authorities, which might be cities, regional authorities, or national authorities that needs to be involved. Of course, the vehicle registration agencies, and also sometimes when necessary, fine collecting agencies. And this is mainly the general steps that we are approaching, and that we want also to take in consideration into our demonstration. For the demonstration, the main requirements that we are trying to establish is that we need at least to demonstrate the cross-border data exchange from the vehicle technical data, allowing to establish if there's an offense or not, and the vehicle owner data once there's an offense, and to collect contact details of the owner of the vehicle, allowing to process the fine. During our demonstration, we are aiming to have participation of all needed organizations, cities, vehicle registration agencies, national or regional ministries. And of course, we want to make the demonstration complying with the current or upcoming legal framework. We don't want to break the law. We are aiming at having at least 2 cities and 2 member states, but we want to invite everyone to participate more. We are open to have 3 or 4, and we want to have your help on it to try to identify if you will be able to engage with us and to participate in our demonstration. We are proposing and planning to have 2 main phases. One that we call the dry run demo, which will be performed at the beginning of the first quarter of next year, so in February and March. We will proposing and we would like to start with interviews with city, regional, or national agencies who are willing to perform these demonstrations with us. In order to establish what are the use cases, what are the possibilities, to get the right organizations and stakeholders on board during the demonstration. And the dry run will be basically a walkthrough through all the different data exchange steps, more or less related with the picture that you just saw, but also in combination with the different types of solutions, as explained by Giant, which will have each of them different steps. And we want to make, let's say, a theoretical walkthrough from all these steps and to already start doing an impact assessment of these solutions towards the different specific conditions and local context by each of the cities of member states. With this way, so we will assess each steps and try to identify which ones would work with the proposed solution or which not, and this way to identify barriers and to define them. If possible, and if we get to that level, also testing any software and any connections that are necessary, between the different agencies that are involved in the implementation of these solutions. We want to do that with this dry run phase that we mentioned here. If successful with member states, with cities under this dry run demo, we are also proposing to have real life demos, as much as possible real life, in a semi-controlled scenario manner. We have to discuss, depending on the possibilities from each of the cities and member states, if we are able to use real or acted situations and data. But we would very much like to do this as much as possible real life, so that we are able to learn really at the most detailed way and assess all the different steps of this data exchange that are necessary, the availability of systems, the performance of these systems if it's necessary, and also the operation. And yeah, indeed. So far we have identified a couple of topics and subjects that we would like to measure, mostly qualitative, I think, but if available, also to have some quantification of the performance of the implementation of solutions in a demo, in order to have some metrics about the quality, for example, the number of requests and answers that are able to that the solutions are able to serve, the accuracy, the punctuality and effectiveness of it, if it's sensible to all different kinds of use cases, the driver and the different vehicle specifics, some aspects related to the usability, what are the systems that are needed, the tools and processes, are they in place? Do they need a lot of deployment of new systems? And then the maturity of the solutions and how far is already implemented technically and operations and legal, and how far can it be demonstrated already during next year, specifically in the real life demo at the second quarter of the 2022. In the end, if we are able to have some ideas about what are the resources that are necessary, which systems, how many people need to be involved, FTAs, and which type of organizations, that will be also a good information that we can collect in order to develop our recommendations on the further implementation of these solutions. So basically, this is what we are proposing so far. Well, at least the basics of our demonstration. Like we said, we are looking for candidate cities and member states which are willing and able to support us next year to test and to demonstrate these solutions. For now, we would be very interested to see if just get ideas from your side, if you would be able and or if you would be interested to participate in one of these demos, either just the first phase, so the dry run together with an interview, and to have just a theoretical walk through the different solutions through your own specific situation, or if you will be willing and available to go all the way and to participate also in the real life part. If you just want to know a little bit more about the results of the demos that we will be performing, that is also possible. We will note you down and to get you involved and engaged more for the presentation of the results later next year, at the end, the third quarter of the next year. I look forward to see if there's already some reactions to it.
Yes, we have 11 reactions.
Okay. Good to see at least 12 participants. Trying to get there. Oh, very good. Trying to see if I can results. So that's very good. Please feel free. We're trying to capture whoever has already stated that they would be at least willing to have a follow-up interview or a dry run. Nevertheless, if you feel it would be good to get a contact from you, an email, maybe we'll get you some contact details afterwards, or you just send your information also to the organization of the workshop. For the ones that probably will have some challenges on joining up the demo, we might be thinking, okay, I would really like to participate, but I'm still not sure if I will be able to. We have a new question that I'd like to forward to you. And maybe you just need to have a little bit more insights about what the demo will go about. And you would like us to get you in contact with you to participate in the demo. That could be done also in the interview, and based on the interview, we could assess together what would be possible or not. It's not that you are immediately signing up for a hard commitment. It would be great, but maybe you need more insight of what are the resources that are necessary, or maybe the proposed time scale. So already in February, March to have a dry run, and then in April, and maybe the second phase is too ambitious, or maybe you don't have the right resources in place. Okay, I see several reactions related to this. From the participants that already mentioned that they at least will like to have a follow-up interview or a dry run. Does anyone want to already to make any further statement related with that? Maybe to emphasize already providing some insights that could be useful for now for us to this level. I'm just gonna open up the mic for anyone who maybe already into this subject that would like to mention how far they are in this subject. I'm not sure if anyone can speak when they open their microphone. It's not necessary. Okay, but at least we have, I see very some positive reactions. I'm not able to see the chat. Is there any questions that we should be answering related with this?
Not really. We don't have any other questions, and we are actually quite good on time. So we have 15 minutes left. So if people have any other questions, any other doubts, it might be interesting to hear from you. Or if Nuno or Yayan want to expand a little bit, that's also possible.
No, from my side, from our side, this is what we had to propose for now, to give you the introduction. Okay, what are the proposed demonstrations in terms of timeline, in terms of type information, and the next steps that we are proposing is for the cross-border demonstration. So we are now collecting this potential involvement of the cities and their willingness and the ability to participate in these demos. We will follow up with interviews in January and February. We did the people that were making themselves available for this, and then in March to plan the walkthrough with the cities, sessions, individual sessions from each of the cities to assess the solutions, and then in April and June to do these demonstrations. And like I said, in September and October to present some results in the final workshop that we would be having to this.
I see that Lucy has a question or a comment.
I have, but Berko can go first because he has a question that he put in the chat. Oh, Berko says he would like to speak. I think, Berko, we would like to speak.
Yes.
Are you having trouble speaking, Berko?
No, I think Berko is writing down the questions. And the first question was, is Eucaris involved in this project? Yes, indeed, Berko. So Eucaris is one of the, actually the authority-centric solution that Giant mentioned is based on the Eucaris platform and the services. And we will try to build up on the work that is being performed already for some time with Eucaris on this level.
Okay. My second question is about the national incasso agencies. In the Netherlands, we have a national, what's the exact word? National collection agency for getting the fine, so to say. It's not a city thing, but on national scale. Are these agencies also involved in the project for collecting fines?
Yeah, they need to be identified indeed per member state and per city. There will be a particular situation. That's the experience that we've collected so far. So each country or each region has their own means and processes for fine collection. And if we, and I hope so, that together with you, Berko, and we will be able to do at least a demonstration, we would get in contact indeed with that organization to see how far they will be able also to support us. And the objective of that is indeed it's to have all the different stakeholders and organizations on board, so we can go through end to end the solution for supporting the UVAR enforcement up to the fine. So that will be indeed a follow-up contact that we need to get it.
And following on from that, if the cities, it'd be great if you are able to also help us get in contact with your ministries and your vehicle data agencies or any of those. That'll be something we'll be talking about with you later. As Nuno said, we need all steps in the chain. And for any cities that haven't yet said, oh, maybe, talk to me. If anybody hasn't, this project is very much about making the lives of both vehicle operators not having to pre-register and also cities in terms of being able to enforce better. I've been involved with urban access regulations for 20 years, and for this length of time, cities have been saying, please help us with the cross-border enforcement and with the finding out the information on the Euro standard, for example, of the vehicle, foreign vehicle. So I can't encourage you enough to please, if you haven't said, or just even talk to me about it, to please do so. We also need people, we're having a number of demos. We will also need people from other countries to kind of validate, to discuss about whether what we are proposing works in their country. So even if we are not being part of the kind of demos, we're going to need other people saying, hang on, this problem is also for our country. So if you don't tell us the answer, cooperate with us, don't blame us if it doesn't work for your country. Just a kind of a bit of a motivation for those one or two that haven't yet maybe signed up.
Thank you, Lucy, for your call for action.
No, we have another question from the audience.
Yep. Thank you, Carolina.
Knut, if you would like to say it out loud, or shall I read it for you?
No, I can ask it directly, no problem.
Perfect.
We could see that this is a very tight time scale for doing demos and setting up things and so on. So can we assume that those already far advanced in the planning are the main target for this, since it will be very, very hard to start from scratch and do this in the time scale?
Yeah, indeed. So we are, let's say, facing that challenge to see how far are each of the member states or cities in getting too acquainted and getting to know these solutions, and how far are their systems and processes in place in order to support this demonstration. And that's why we have these two types of demonstrations. One more theoretical, so the demo and the demo dry run. Where we'll be more based on interviews and to more theoretical walk through the different organizations. And then if that is successful, and if we see there is maturity, the maturity level of each of the systems are necessary, systems, data, processes are in place, then we would proceed to real life. So the demonstration is more a means to learn about the barriers and the challenges. It's not that we are wanting to demonstrate impact or effect, or we are just trying to learn together with demonstrations, that also somehow to showcase the possibilities of the solutions. And hopefully with these two objectives we are able to bring a step forward in a future adoption of one of the solutions European wide. So let's see how far, and based on interview together to assess how far are each of the member states in order to be able to participate in this demonstration with these two objectives.
Thank you.
So Knut, do you think so in Norway or maybe in the Nordics would be a possibility?
Yes, I wrote in the first part and partly in the second. Norway have done quite a bit on these use cases, and it would probably be relatively easy to both showcase and to add on certain services to some of the running pilots. But we need, of course, to discuss this internally and with you guys.
Okay, very good. So I'm sure that you included your name in it to contact me, and we will contact you.
Yep, I did.
So, and basically that's the next step from our side. Thank you for providing your answers. What's one more answer from Rudolf? One more question from Rudolf. Go ahead, Rudolf.
Yes, hello. Good afternoon, everyone. I have one comment regarding these demos or our pilot projects. It would be very good if those cities or countries which have bilateral agreements on exchange of data, because there are such countries, for example, Belgium and France. If these countries and cities involved can provide their information, it means that how it works, whether indeed they can get access to vehicle registers in the member state of the registration of the vehicle, and whether this information is sufficient, and how the system works, how personal data protection works, how they comply with all these rules. So if you have such agreements, because you have, please give this information to the consultants, and they will then be able to use it. And it will be also very important for the Commission to know how such system works, which are already in place. Of course, there's another question of whether in the EU this is an effective solution to have such bilateral agreements. Of course not. The EU must be involved in the process, but this is a much more complex question. So please go ahead with the countries and cities where there are bilateral agreements. Thanks a lot.
Okay. Thank you, Rudolf. Indeed, that's also a good point. And we are open indeed for that kind of learnings and already how things work already currently state of the art. There's someone else with a question.
No, I don't think we have more questions from the audience. Actually.
There was one old hand. Okay. Like I said, the next steps will be to get in contact with the people that provided their answers. We have your names and I think also your emails as you are being participating, and you will hear from us in order to establish the next steps about the interviews together with you. Thank you very much for now. And if we don't have any more reactions or comments, then I would thank you everyone, and thank you Giant for your presentation, and Carolina for organizing this together with Tarsis. And I think we will be going back to the plenary, Carolina.
Yes, indeed. I'm just posting this right second. Again, the link for the first link that we had this morning is the same for the wrap-up. We will see each other in 5 minutes there. So thank you so much, both of you, for this interesting session. And hope to see all of you in the wrap-up session in 5 minutes.
Okay. Bye. Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.